Hello, and welcome back to the web series Topics of Impact. My name is Matt Pettinelli. I'm your host, as well as the founder and CEO of CapGrow Partners. Topics of Impact brings professionals and executives from the behavioral health industry together to discuss topics that are traditionally held behind closed doors and boardrooms. Today, it is with great pleasure that I welcome Debbie Sikes from ncgCARE to the show. Debbie, welcome.
Thank you. It's really great to see you.
We're glad to have you. Before we dive into the topics, we want to get to know you a little bit better. I got some quick questions to ask. Are you ready?
I am.
All right, here we go. What is your job title?
I am the Chief Clinical Officer for ncgCARE.
What city and state do you live in?
I live in Alexandria, Virginia.
What's your favorite part about your job?
I work with so many amazing, talented, compassionate people, and I'm also very proud of the work that they do every day. So,
What's your favorite city to visit?
that would have to be New York City.
What is the best vacation you have ever been on?
I have to say a cruise to Antarctica.
What's your favorite restaurant?
It's called Cafe Fiorella.
Do you have any pets?
I have 2 dogs.
What is your favorite sports team?
That would be the Washington Nationals.
Would you rather travel to the beach or the mountains?
I'm more of a mountain person.
What is something you like to do in your free time?
I do like to exercise, but I also love walking the dogs and being outside.
If you were not in your current role, what do you think you would be doing?
I love what I do, but someday it would be fun to do something with animals, maybe make wine. I guess I could think of a few things that might be fun.
All right, time's up. That's all we have. Before we get to the very first topic, I think it would be great for our audience to have a better sense for your role and the services that ncgCARE provides.
As I said, I'm the Chief Clinical Officer with ncgCARE. I have been with the organization for close to 25 years, and the organization has evolved, as you can imagine, over time. I oversee a department that we refer to as the ncgCARE Institute. Under the umbrella of the NCG Institute is quality improvement, outcomes, training and professional development, evidence-based practices, client safety and risks. It's pretty comprehensive. We are supporting each of the programs across the organization in the clinical work that they do.
ncgCARE services predominantly focus on mental health, behavioral health, substance abuse?
Yeah, mental health, substance use. We have some DD programming. It covers the gamut. We work with kids, we work with adults, families. We provide intensive services, less intensive services, everything from outpatient to some residential.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, Debbie, on to our very first question. DEI efforts and changes within your organization. Debbie, can you give us a little insight into how DEI has been implemented at ncgCARE?
I can. Obviously, I'm not head of HR, and so I don't have a lot of historical information about how our efforts have evolved over time, but I really can speak to what we have dealt with and what we've done in 2020. As a result of the George Floyd incident, it became very apparent that our employees needed to have a different conversation than they had ever had before about diversity and equity. We have had training in place. We do have some DEI practices in place, but we began to be concerned that that wasn't really going to meet their needs at this point. People were reaching out, they were sharing resources, and we wanted to be proactive. What we decided to do was to hire a consultant who could help us evaluate our current state as an organization, and then could help us develop a plan where we could then better support our employees. The consultant engaged in a comprehensive evaluation of our policies and procedures, our human resources practices. He looked at, staff demographic information. He surveyed staff. He interviewed some staff, and he worked with a small group of us weekly to share information and pull together a report, which he then shared with the executive team.
And are the employees of ncgCARE aware that a more comprehensive plan has been undertaken and will be presented at some point in time?
Yeah, they are. We have communicated with our employees through letters from the CEO, letters from the executive team. Obviously, they have participated in some of the surveys and focus groups and interviews. So they're aware from that perspective. We also have a staff newsletter where we have shared updates so that they know that we're continuing to work on this. And I'm excited to execute the plan as we have it outlined.
Congratulations. I think that's great work.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our second question. Trauma-informed practices. Can you describe what trauma-informed practices are and how they are strategically used within ncgCARE?
Trauma-informed practices essentially ask the question, what happened to you instead of what is wrong with you. When trauma-informed practices are integrated into your clinical programming, your clinicians end up with a much better picture of a client's life situation. And that results in improved diagnosis, better treatment, and ultimately better outcomes.
And was this something that you all had begun to explore pre-pandemic, or was this once COVID hit, you kind of dove into this topic as well?
Yeah, great question. We did begin to explore it pre-pandemic. I would say that over the years, we've seen an increase in staff burnout, and you see that through staff turnover. You read about it in staff exit and stay surveys, and you certainly talk about it when you're talking with direct services staff and their supervisors. We've done a fair amount of compassion fatigue training and just felt like it was the time to take it to the next level and ensure that we could better support our employees by being a trauma-informed organization.
So how has COVID impacted that plan and strategy? Obviously, pre-pandemic had a different idea of where you would go or which direction you might head in. And then post-pandemic, I'm assuming some things have changed.
Our plan to move ahead when we originally engaged a consultant to help guide us through the process has been delayed. And exactly as you said, because of the pandemic and needing to respond to that. I will say, though, if anything has confirmed our need to do this, it's been the trauma, that has resulted from both the pandemic and some of the social justice issues that we've all been dealing with in 2020.
And have you seen a big difference in how the pandemic has had an impact on, the individuals that you serve, employees, your peers on the executive committee? How have you all been able to address the variation and trauma caused by the pandemic?
Yeah, it's been a real balancing act. Immediately after the pandemic hit, we put together a COVID response team. And this team has done an amazing job of pursuing information, getting information out, securing PPE, integrating all of the CDC guidelines for keeping our clients and our staff safe. We had to pivot immediately and begin providing telehealth where we could. Thankfully, we were able to do that. I would say, though, we have continued to be able to provide some services to children, but we are really concerned about the impact this pandemic is going to have on kids longer term. And the other thing that I would probably add is that we have really begun to see some fatigue over the use of virtual intervention.
All right, Debbie, thank you so much for those answers. We're going to move on to the third and last topic.
Okay.
We're going to touch a little bit on the mental health of the pandemic and what you've seen. What are you doing to help mitigate and better facilitate, mental health measures and people kind of just being exhausted and tired and at this point in time, given that we're a year in?
Early on in the pandemic, we conducted a survey. We just wanted to find out where staff were, what they were experiencing. And a significant percentage of our staff shared that they had concerns about their own mental health. Pretty early on, the anxiety associated with the pandemic was really impacting people. And fortunately, on top of that is the stress of the changes at work and the day in, day out concern that that you may end up exposed. We have tried hard to provide support for our staff where we can. We've had a focus on telehealth, but we have very much wanted people to maintain their routine. And so, staff meetings needed to continue, supervision needed to continue. And that was tough at a time where everybody's distracted.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me personally has been the disruption to your routine.
Yeah, you're right. And we have done a lot of that, putting together resources, not only just for staff, but also for staff working with clients who were struggling to, get on top of self-care and do the best that they can to manage this.
For sure. And this kind of dovetails into the vaccine, right? How are you addressing the vaccine with your employees?
I will say that we recently conducted a survey of staff because we wanted to find out, what staff were thinking and feeling about the vaccine. I can report that just under half of our staff who responded had gotten the vaccine, and another 40% expressed reluctance or concern about getting the vaccine. Of that group, about a third indicated that they were concerned about the safety of the vaccine. So our approach has really begun to provide more information and also to provide some Q&A sessions with medical professionals so that we can help people, address their concerns, provide facts, and hopefully increase the numbers of staff that are getting vaccinated.
So it sounds like you're going to embark on a more of an educational campaign to say, hey, here's the science behind it. You can make your own decision.
You're right. We have talked about the use of incentives. We've even talked about mandating the vaccine, and we just don't think that we're anywhere near that point yet.
Right. I commend you guys for sticking with it and making sure everyone gets the right information. That's really well done.
Thank you.
So last point here, do you see any mental health treatment and strategy changing post-pandemic?
We have learned a great deal. I do believe that telehealth will become a significant part of behavioral health care. And I know it hasn't really been accepted in behavioral health care, but I think that we have seen access improve. We were able to provide services to people that wouldn't otherwise get it, so I do believe that that'll be a part of mental health care going forward, and we will do everything we can to incorporate that where it's appropriate.
I think everyone's kind of more aware of it today and sees it as a more likely reality in the future. The question is timing.
Right, absolutely.
All right. Debbie, listen, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining me today. We really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you all for joining us. And until next time, it's good to be with you. Thank you.